Hi, Prashant. Thanks a lot for taking time to do this today. So, Prashant is a vice president of risk and client operations at probably the most leading Wall Street investment bank. We're going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes, and Prashant is going to walk us through what kind of people he hires and what kind of skill sets and interviews he looks for. Hey, Prashant.
Hey, hi, Benny. Thanks for the opportunity. Really
Sure,
looking
sure.
forward, the next 10 to 15 minutes to add value, to what you've been doing and also help, others to kind of, drive value, when they come out in the, market looking for such opportunities.
Thanks, Prashant. So, Prashant, can you start off by telling us at your current the Wall Street Bank you work for, and you're based out of Bangalore,
Right.
what exactly do you do? Because typically, when people think of banks, they think all the jobs involve some kind of finance. But what exactly do you do in risk and client operations?
Well, this term may sound fancy,
Hmm.
and sometimes I like to boast it in front of friends and families because they think that I'm talking about Greek, Latin, etc.
Okay.
But nevertheless, what we do is nothing rocket science.
Hmm.
It's purely to a large extent how do you make decisions and how do you make judgments. So from an investment banking perspective, there are a lot of things that that the bank does.
Yeah.
I would not want to get into those details, but
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
also a lot of things that the organization does in terms of supporting the deals, supporting the front office, that is the desk, the trading desk, etc.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we focus and my division and a lot of other divisions within the organization is
Hmm.
just to ensure that the trade that the company is executing on behalf of the client, it
Hmm.
is done seamlessly. That is right from booking of the trade, execution of the trade, the documentation, etc., etc. Now it
Understood.
may sound simple,
Hmm.
but one of the things that we have to remember is a lot of these organizations are very large and global in nature.
Yeah.
So the number of deals that happens, the everyday buying and selling, etc.,
Yeah.
and not just that, right? The mergers, the acquisitions, a lot of things. So they need some sort of a backend support,
Yeah.
so that the respective people can concentrate on their specific jobs and responsibilities, and that
Understood.
is where we come in.
Hmm.
To give you a classic example, right? Many a times, let's say there is a client, ABC, and our organization facilitates a trade, and let's say he bought 100 shares of company XYZ.
Yeah.
Uh, Now trader,
Yeah.
accidentally, instead of punching in 100 shares of XYZ,
Yeah.
he or she accidentally punches 1,000 shares,
Understood.
right?
Got
I
it.
mean,
Got it.
just that heat of that moment,
Yeah.
that hastiness or whatsoever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it comes to us, right? I
Yeah.
mean, at the end of the day, we review everything, and we see a mismatch here. Look, something is going wrong. So
Hmm.
that is why we ensure that the books and records of the firm, is accurate. It's just like your bank's passbook, right?
Got it.
When you draw cash,
Hmm.
so that is what we do from managing the risk for the organization at a
Okay.
basic level.
Yeah.
uh, and also to ensure that all the clients of the organization, we facilitate them seamlessly, making them feel valued, etc. So that is where the client operations comes in
Comes
place,
in.
speaking with the clients, email, phone calls, etc., etc.
Understood. Can you walk us through how did you get this job? Like, what did you study in college? What was your first job? How did you get this job? Yeah, can you just tell us that?
Yeah. So that's interesting, right? So
Hmm.
I was never academically inclined,
Hmm.
and a lot of us and a lot of people take pride in telling, hey, look, I'm not strong academically, so maybe I may not have a good corporate job or whatsoever. But
Yeah.
I would like to kind of challenge that, not because I have scaled up in my career,
Hmm.
but I think the sheer volumes that I see out there in the market.
Yeah.
So I did my graduation, in Bachelor of Business Management.
Hmm.
At that point in time, it sounded a really fancy, a fancy term,
Yeah.
as against a plain, Bachelor of Commerce. So I didn't have a science background.
Okay.
So I did my BBM, and after that, I joined, one of the a computer hardware, company,
Mm-hmm.
whereby that was my first corporate exposure. I was there for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Learned the basics of what a corporate job role means, how these organizations work, etc., etc. I mean,
Okay.
the really very basics.
And what were you doing? Sales there, operations? What were you doing in your first job?
So there again, it was primarily operations,
Okay.
supporting the order manufacturing process of the of the clients world over.
Yeah.
So as and when they would place their orders, we would sit at the back end, here in Bangalore,
Mm-hmm.
and would consolidate that their order and flush it to
Got it. Got it. And after that, what was your next job from there?
Yeah. After 2.5 years, the job started to kind of get on to me.
Mm-hmm.
I started to feel that maybe I'm not adding that much of value, to my skill sets, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
and that is when the Wall Street company came in,
Mm-hmm.
and I was pretty much focused to kind of get into this organization, and that is when the transition happened,
Mm-hmm.
and I joined, and it's been roughly about now 10, 11 years that
Okay.
I've been, with the investment bank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's about it.
Got it. So 10 to 11 years at the current job.
Yes.
Okay. And then how has your job role progressed from when you started to now? Like, what was your first job? When you got hired, what did you do first?
Oh, the job role has changed drastically.
Yeah.
It's beyond my comprehension.
Okay.
So when I first joined, everything was like Greek and Latin to me.
Mm-hmm.
The first 1 month was like a honeymoon period,
Mm-hmm.
where there was not much to do, but primarily absorb in terms of the learning opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Considering the size of the organization is so huge, there are so many things that keeps on happening,
Right.
etc. So the
Right.
first 1 month was just kind of easy kind of a period,
Uh-huh.
but not any longer for anyone who joins new, because I'm
Okay.
talking for 10 years earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, primarily to start with, the basic expectation, whoever joins is to learn the basics of the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number one. And
Mm-hmm.
when I say basics of the job, Bini, it I do not mean just understanding the mechanics.
Right.
That's something very easy, because what
Mm-hmm.
we do is not really very rocket science, but
Yeah.
that's something which is not going to take you very far,
Yeah.
right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
6 months, 8 months, you can sail through very easily, but
Mm-hmm.
after that, that is where the challenges kind of comes in.
Right.
So, getting into the details, asking a lot of questions to understand,
Mm-hmm.
and taking your thought process, enabling your thought leadership,
Mm-hmm.
start adding value. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is where the difference lies, and,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what I started to do.
Okay.
First 6 to 8 months focus really on the core of the job functionalities, what is required, what
Yeah.
is done on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
finding how you can add values, and how
Mm-hmm.
and the same way the organization grows, you grow.
Right.
And then gradually, kept looking for opportunities within my team to see how
Mm-hmm.
I can grow.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, I had the right partnerships with some of the key stakeholders who had believed in my skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, it was a gradual transition, from, if I would break it down for everyone to understand,
Yeah.
so it would be an individual contributor. You're working in a team,
Yeah.
you're working in individual capacity, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's role kind of fits into the end goal.
Right.
so
Right.
so so
Got
that's
it.
number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you then start to realize and start to assess how do you fit into the team dynamics, because that is
Mm-hmm.
very important. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot work in an isolation,
Okay.
right? So I
Got it.
started doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Number two. Number three, as and how you start gaining expertise,
Mm-hmm.
right? You start looking for opportunities where you can add value,
Mm-hmm.
to the business,
Mm-hmm.
because that is what is a driving factor. Look, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of companies, right? What
Mm-hmm.
happens, at least in this financial services space,
Yeah.
you do not get a role, or rather, you do not get a responsibility
Mm-hmm.
officially
Yeah.
until you do not start showing the traits for it.
Understood.
Nothing
Yeah.
comes to you on a platter. So
Right.
it's very important, to build the core expertise, and
Mm-hmm.
then you start picking up the threads, and then
Mm-hmm.
gradually move on. So that's what I started to do.
Okay.
Then gradually, I got elevated to what used to be called as a team leader earlier, right?
Can
So,
you,
so
Prashant, can you just walk through the designation step by step? Like, what is the first designation? From there, what's the second? From there, all the way to vice president. Could you just give me the list so I can just type it on the slide?
yes, yes. So, I think, Vinny. So before I take a stab at that, let's
Mm.
understand. In terms of titles, designations, different companies, different industries have different standards.
Yeah.
A lot of these investment banks, have a pretty flat hierarchy.
Yeah.
By and large, what that means is, you start off as an analyst,
Mm-hmm.
which is typically, it could be, let's say, between 2 to 4 years program,
Mm-hmm.
depending upon how you scale up.
Mm-hmm.
And then from an analyst, you gradually, you scale up to what is called an associate.
Yeah.
And then from there on, you scale up to become a vice president,
Okay.
and then from there on, you scale up to become a managing director and a partner.
Understood.
So that's a pretty flat organization. But
Mm-hmm.
having said that, there are a lot of segregations within each and every role. So
Mm-hmm.
let's take, for example, an associate, right?
Mm-hmm.
An associate means that, let's say, I'm fresh out of the college, no job experience.
Yeah.
I joined one of the investment bank.
Yeah.
You start off as an analyst,
Mm-hmm.
which will be a 2 to 4 year cycle typically.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then from there on, you graduate to what is called an associate.
Yeah.
Now here is where you start getting, more additional responsibility
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, let's say, managing a team,
Yeah.
being responsible for the team, being responsible for certain key deliveries for the organization,
Okay.
right, to test your skill sets, and you
Mm-hmm.
will single-handedly be responsible, to drive and execute those,
Okay.
along with managing the team. So
Got it.
something that you will start learning here is people management as well,
Mm-hmm.
along with individual contributor.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so that's an associate. Now associate, again, interestingly, could be in the range of, let's say, 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
I don't want to like put in a hard timeline. It is purely based on someone's skill sets.
Skill sets. Yeah.
Yeah, but the transition to a VP is not kind of an overnight.
Right.
Right? And like I said earlier, you need to demonstrate traits of the next level before you
Mm-hmm.
kind of you kind of get that elevation.
Right.
Now VP, is really, a prestigious, a role title,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you become responsible, for your team, within the organization, across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of, managerial responsibilities, though you would be contributing individually, to
Mm-hmm.
some of the firm's goals, but
Mm-hmm.
then you will be directly responsible towards your people. That
Okay.
is, primarily, let's say, career planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a team of 8 people or 10 people or 3 people, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You have to look how you can scale up, their career,
Mm-hmm.
work with them closely. I mean, a bulk of my time goes, in terms of, career planning,
Right.
ensuring, the right opportunities are being extended,
Mm-hmm.
to the right people.
Yeah.
Something like, let's say, what I do is what is called a skill will matrix, right? Just to kind
Okay.
of plot people,
Mm-hmm.
where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, the business is as usual. That
Mm-hmm.
is in terms of, how you're contributing towards the growth of the business,
Mm-hmm.
towards execution of the plans, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Mm-hmm.
The other most important thing, as a VP, right, with
Mm-hmm.
the current trend within the industry,
Yeah.
all about, artificial intelligence, machine learning,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Mm-hmm.
While there are expectations that the analysts and the associate kind
Mm-hmm.
of scale up, have that broader thinking to see how they can make their jobs easier, how they can make their jobs automated.
Yeah.
A large part, apart from people planning, my time also goes into see how best we can automate the function that we do on a day-to-day basis,
Got it. Got it.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I kind of segregate my
Understood.
time, and that is what is required from a VP.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do as a VP.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, within VP there are like one or two role titles,
Yeah.
within that, just to kind of create that segregation and ensure your transition from a vice president to a managing director,
Mm-hmm.
and then from a managing director, you go on to become a partner.
Partner. Understood.
So
Okay.
so that's the different role titles within the bank.
Understood. So, talking about when you're hiring people fresh into your team and into the firm, um, can you? I mean, can we start by saying what kind of colleges do you recruit from? Like, what kind of skill sets, what kind of degrees do you go to when you do campus interviews?
So, talking in terms of colleges, Bini, so
Mm-hmm.
we go to both, the top tier colleges, and also the tier B colleges, across India. So,
Yeah,
hiring is just not limited to Bangalore, considering the bank is based out of Bangalore.
yeah.
So we go across India.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of candidates, right? Look,
Mm-hmm.
couple of key things.
Mm-hmm.
So you only have that 15 minutes, 30 minutes, etc. that you do the interview. And that runs over a couple of rounds.
Yeah,
Some of the key things that we look at is, irrespective of the candidate's background,
yeah.
how inspired or motivated the candidates are.
Mm.
Are they open to learning?
Mm-hmm.
Because most likely, what people have studied in school and college,
Mm-hmm.
the implementation may not be straight away at the workplace,
Right,
right? So it
right.
will be a huge challenge, huge conflict within the candidate. Hey, look,
Mm-hmm.
what, I have not studied this, how can I perform this job,
Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
assessing that is a key quality,
Mm-hmm.
that we look for.
Mm-hmm.
How flexible the candidates are, how agile they are, to kind of
Mm-hmm.
shift that thought process.
Yeah,
If people are really hell bent on one thought process, they appear very rigid.
yeah.
I think it's a strict no,
Okay.
because these are like attitude issues, right? So, and
Mm-hmm.
approach issues,
Mm-hmm.
which takes a lot longer to kind of fix,
Mm-hmm.
rather than looking at people who are a lot flexible in their approach,
Flexible.
right? The
Okay.
second most important thing, Bini, is ethics,
Mhm. Right.
right?
Mhm.
As an organization, and you would see, right, in the media, in a lot of other industries, right? Ethics
Mhm.
is extremely important,
Right.
right? I mean,
Mhm.
we do not look at circumventing any rules, people kind of breaking the rules, etc., etc.
Right. Right.
So that's very key.
Right.
Integrity, that again comes with the ethics.
Yeah.
um, the most, and apart from these two, the two other key things is
Mhm.
communication.
Mhm.
From a communication perspective, what we look at is how assertive, articulative, and impactful your communication is,
Mhm.
right? Number one.
Mhm.
Number two, is there a scope for us to work with you to kind
Mhm.
of scale up your communication, because it's
Mhm.
all about the art of communication from a day-to-day job perspective.
Yeah.
So that's key.
Mhm.
uh, the fourth most important point is the art of saying no,
Okay.
right? Just because you are in an interview process,
Mhm.
do not fall into this honey trap of saying yes to whatever the interviewer or the panelists ask for.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, feel empowered, to say no. Or
Right.
if you don't know the answer to a particular question, I
Yeah.
mean, feel empowered to say no.
Got it.
That's very important.
Understood. Got it. Got it. Now, so when you go to campuses and lots of students are applying to your bank, how do you make the first cut? How do you decide who to invite for the interviews from all the resumes you get?
So that's a very tricky and a critical path, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a first thing, there is an aptitude test
Mm-hmm.
that happens
Okay.
for all the candidates who show interest from the
Right.
college.
Okay.
And you need to score a minimum, you need to get a minimum score
Got it.
so you can proceed to a face-to-face round of interview.
Okay.
So once the aptitude test is done, it may be for 30 to 45 minutes
Mm-hmm.
or an hour probably.
Yeah.
And then the face-to-face interview starts, which typically could be either 2 rounds or 3 rounds, within the campuses.
Mm-hmm.
Number one.
Mm-hmm.
And each round would roughly be about 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
And the bullets that I was mentioning you in one of the the previous questions
Yeah.
is what something we look to assess for at the candidate. We do not focus extensively on the academic part,
Yeah.
because we do understand that it is all about your thought process, your decision making, your ability to be flexible to kind
Mm-hmm.
of move on in life.
Got it.
But that's how typically it happens.
Understood.
And yes, once we shortlist the respective candidates after
Hmm.
2 rounds or 3 rounds,
Hmm.
that is when an offer for internship is made to the candidates.
Understood. So you also have a very active internship recruiting process as well, right? Apart from the jobs.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Um, so that's the primary thing. The organization focuses, pretty heavily, on interns, getting right from the college, so that they understand the culture of the organization, see what the
Yeah.
work environment is,
Yeah.
and they can make a very good decision, after the internship process of about 8 to 10 weeks, to see if this is what they want to do in their career.
Understood. Understood. Got it. So, just a couple of final questions, Prashant. I mean, for students who are in college right now in their final year, what do you think they could be doing right now in their last semesters to prepare better for these jobs, like in your bank?
Couple of key things,
Mm-hmm.
based on my observation,
Mm-hmm.
and interaction, with some of the grads, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the key things, is what I would say is communication.
Mm-hmm.
I know I mentioned in one of the previous questions, but
Yeah.
that is the key. And by communication, I do not mean, the ability, to speak fluently in English, or to write, fluent emails, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What I mean by communication is that, when you speak,
Mm-hmm.
when you send an email,
Mm-hmm.
right, your communication should be brief, right? The what they call as brevity, right?
Right.
It
Right.
should be brief, it should be impactful,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you should be able to get the attention of the recipient, while sending that email. And same
Mm-hmm.
thing happens, when you speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
What they call, in a lot of these reality shows, they what they call as elevator speech, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have 30 seconds, 45 seconds, or a 1 minute. I don't want to build any pressure, but eventually, if you start practicing, these sort of an elevator pitches, I
Yeah.
think, you scale up your communication, which is single most important factor, in the jobs that we do, because you work with global counterparts, across the board.
Yeah.
You may not have the luxury,
Right.
of getting someone's, calendar, or someone's time for 30
Yeah.
minutes, 45 minutes,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
So that's very important. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I have seen, Vinny, is a lot of colleges, right,
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that the students are pretty strong in communication. They
Mm-hmm.
have something called as Toastmaster club, or some
Yeah.
Toastmaster program.
Yeah.
And I do see a lot of students participating in that. I would
Mm-hmm.
encourage everyone, if they have similar programs in their colleges or within their communities, participate in these programs,
Yeah.
to kind of get out of the fear of public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Understood.
That's very important. Second thing is, irrespective of your academic background,
Mm-hmm.
um, have a sense of empowerment, and don't feel that, since I don't have a particular academic background, I can't excel in a certain job, or a
Mm-hmm.
certain profile. But
Mm-hmm.
rather, try to build an agile and logical thought process,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's as simple as, let's say, maths, right? When you do a 4 minus 2, it is 2,
Mm-hmm.
right? Simple as
Yeah.
that. 4 minus 2 cannot be 3, right?
Right.
Until unless you add certain permutation, and you add certain caveats, sorry,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I guess that thought process is very key. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, these two are the most critical factor, most critical skill sets for students to kind of build as they start getting onto these job profiles. And
Terrific.
once they get into
Mm-hmm.
these job profiles, there are a lot more skill sets,
Mm-hmm.
which they would gradually imbibe.
Yeah.
But to begin with, I would say, these two, in my book, are the two strong ones.
Understood. And one final question, Prashant, is see, once you recruit these people and they join you, right? And I'm sure in the first 6, 7 months, you can immediately make out the difference between the top performers and the average performers.
Mhm.
So, in your experience, once they join you, what is the biggest thing that differentiates the top performers from the average ones? Is it still the same communication skills kind of stuff, or there are some other things that differentiate these people?
That's a little tricky one, right? So
Mm-hmm.
look, we all humans, right?
Yeah.
And we do make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a constant process of learning, self discovery. You draw from your experiences, etc.
Yeah.
Now, yes, you are right to a certain extent. since we work, with all of these people so very closely,
Yeah.
it's very easy to form a judgment or to form an opinion over the
Mm-hmm.
next couple of months to see, how these people are, how these members are performing.
Yeah.
Having said that,
Mm-hmm.
before I answer your, average performer and a good performer,
Mm-hmm.
what is important for us is, right? Every person within the organization is an asset to us.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't want to let go of anyone.
Mm-hmm.
What is important is, if someone who is not scaling up or who is not able to scale up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is not that, he or she doesn't get a conversion, offer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We work with him or her,
Mm-hmm.
all the more closely to kind of understand what the challenges are, right?
Mm-hmm.
What further opportunities, or
Mm-hmm.
learning opportunities we can create or we
Mm-hmm.
can extend to him or her to see,
Mm-hmm.
the elevation is seamless,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think, that is what we do before we come to a conclusion, whether a conversion or whether, the offer should be made or, should not be made,
Got it. Got it.
right? So that's number one.
Uh-huh.
In terms of, distinguishing between the average and a best performer,
Yeah.
is what I would say is, I mean, I may sound like, like a tape recorder. A lot of people say that, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess, an average performer is pretty much content, with what he or she is doing.
Mm-hmm.
He or she may not have the desire to move ahead in life. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he or she is basically, yeah, I have a 9 to 5 job. I'm going to come to my office, do the
Yeah.
same routine thing day in and day out, do not add value to it, and go back home.
Mm-hmm.
And a best performer or a good performer or a great performer
Yeah.
tries to draw inspirations, around him, keeps
Right.
himself or herself, motivated and
Uh-huh.
drive things.
Okay.
He or she does not want to settle for less. Look,
Right.
the organizations, the environment that we operate, while it is okay for people to not be aspirational, it is okay for people, to not go higher up in the ladder. That is
Yeah.
perfectly fine, right?
Right.
It is a human's individual's choice.
Yeah.
But from an organization perspective, right, you hit
Mm-hmm.
a stagnation,
Right. Right.
right? So what
Yeah.
next for you, right? The
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
organization is not able to create value for you.
Yeah.
So I guess, people should always look for opportunities where they are able to continuously, scaling up to
Mm-hmm.
do more and more in their
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day life. it is,
Got
it
it.
is as simple as this, right? Let's take for example, it may sound cliche, but let's say,
Mm-hmm.
your best friend, from your school days may no longer be your best friend,
Mm-hmm.
as you continue to kind of, age, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Similarly, your preferences, your skill sets continues to evolve.
Yeah.
You need to look at those skill sets and see, how best you can stay competent, in this ever increasing competitive,
Yeah.
environment.
Got
So
it.
I would say, people should look forward to kind of, push themselves. Look for any of the, sporting icons or day-to-day icons, from your everyday life to kind of, draw inspiration.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Great. Great, Prashant. This is pretty much it. Thank you so much for your time. This, I'm sure, is going to be super helpful for the students viewing this. If you have more
Sure.
questions, we'll come back to you.
Sure, Bini, and thanks again for the opportunity. It's
Absolutely.
it's really been a privilege here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.